Good morning, everybody. When the country got started, one of the big questions was who will be in the first cabinet? Who will Washington's advisors be? And the fellow they picked for the Treasury Department was Alexander Hamilton, who took the oath to be the head of that department on this date, September 11, in 1789. One of the problems faced by the Continental Congress during the Revolutionary War was how to pay for the war. And the solution they came up with was basically to print tons of paper money. And here's an example of what was called a continental. But there was no gold or silver behind this money, and it rose and fell based on how the war was going. It was very inflated, and Robert Morris, who was charged with kind of running the finances of the country, had a terrible time during the war. And it wasn't until Washington had his first cabinet, pictured here, that we get a Secretary of the Treasury Department. Alexander Hamilton, standing in this picture, took his oath to head the department on this date, 1789. Here's the seal. The scales stand for justice, the key stands for authority, the stars stand for the 13 states. And one of the big issues faced by the states when the Revolutionary War was finished was the debt. So Hamilton's solution was for the federal government to take over the debt, which it did. And another idea he had was to establish a national bank, and here's the first bank of the United States. There were others that came and went later, and this was a very forward-looking idea by Hamilton. So what does the Treasury Department do? Well, coinage in circulation is a big deal. The mint falls under the authority of the Treasury Department, and as does the creation of paper money. And all the paper comes from the Crane Paper Company, Dalton, Mass. A couple hours from where I live, still there. They've been making the paper for the paper currency ever since the beginning. This museum was the original factory. Check it out when you're in the Berkshire sometime. So the idea of circulation, how much money is in circulation, does it go in, does it come out, this is all up to the Treasury Department, as is the administration and the collection of income tax. Do you have the right forms, and so on and so forth? And then another big department under the authority of the Treasury Department is the Social Security Administration. So the Treasury Department really does quite a bit. For instance, if the government owes debt, the Treasury Department pays it. And a lot of the debt that the government owes is through bonds. Perhaps you have a savings bond or a treasury bond. And then the national debt, which basically happens because of acts of Congress for spending and things, is sort of supervised by the Treasury Department. So even though they're not responsible for it, they have to look it over, I guess. Speaking of looking over, they also look over the shoulders of the big banks. These are the largest banks in our country today. Savings and loans the same, so the Treasury Department is involved with that. And they get involved in kind of the arcane part of finances. Monetary policy is what banks do. Fiscal policy is what Congress does. How do those work together? Gets kind of complicated. So there are a lot of taxes that we pay. Here are some of those. So the Treasury Department not only supervises it, but goes after tax cheaters. So it has an enforcement arm. So these are the Passaic Falls on the Passaic River in Paterson, New Jersey. Next time you're in that part of the world, check out the park there with the statue of Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton's vision was for a robust, urban, industrial America, and he thought the Passaic Falls was the perfect kind of place for industrialization to begin. His political foe, Thomas Jefferson, had a different view. Jefferson saw us as being mostly rural, but Hamilton's view won out. A reminder of the Treasury Department is on our paper money. There you see the seal of the Treasury Department, 1789, when the country began and the cabinet began. And next time you're in D.C., check out the Treasury Department building, and guess whose statue is in front? Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury.